Hello everyone, this is Mohan Kumar BS signing in to talk about positive feedback mechanism and oxytocin secretion as an example to understand positive feedback mechanism. So we have set the following objectives to address the positive feedback mechanism. So in this session, you will learn and understand the basics of positive feedback mechanism in regulating homeostasis and to understand the role of oxytocin secretion in regulating positive feedback mechanism. So at the end of the lecture, you should have a thorough knowledge about the way positive feedback loops are regulated with the oxytocin secretion as an example. To address our objectives, I have set following contents for this class: positive feedback mechanism, role of oxytocin, process of childbirth and oxytocin secretion, and in the end a summary of positive feedback loop. So to begin with, positive feedback mechanism, it is a process in which the end products of an action cause more of that action to occur in a feedback loop. This would amplify the original action. The positive feedback mechanisms are quite rare. It amplifies changes rather than reversing them or negating them or lessening them. The release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland during labor is an example of positive feedback mechanism. Oxytocin stimulation stimulates the muscle contractions that push the baby through the birth canal. The release of oxytocin results in stronger or augmented contractions during labor. The contractions intensify and increase until the baby is outside the birth canal. When the stimulus to the pressure receptors ends, oxytocin production stops and labor contractions cease. Positive feedback mechanisms control self-perpetuating events that can be out of control and do not require continuous adjustment. In positive feedback mechanisms, the original stimulus is promoted, as I said earlier, rather than negated. It increases the deviation from an ideal normal value. So here if you look at the role of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a peptide hormone and neuropeptide as well. It is normally produced in the hypothalamus and released by the posterior pituitary. It plays a role in social bonding, reproduction, childbirth, and the period after childbirth. Oxytocin is released into the bloodstream as a hormone in response to love and labor. This helps with birth, bonding with the baby, and milk production as well. If you look at the diagram, there are three stimuluses which would activate the hypothalamus. Number one is stretching of cervix, suckling stimulus, or skin to skin contact like the orgasm in case of both male and female union. So they would activate certain neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus, which would send a signal to the posterior gland by synthesizing oxytocin, and this oxytocin is stored in the posterior pituitary and they are released into the bloodstream directly. So based on the kind of stimulus it has got, it would target the cells like in uterus. If stretching of cervix is required, then the oxytocin would act on the uterus and bring about uterine contraction and childbirth. If a suckling stimulus, then it would it would target the mammary glands and bring about milk ejection and letdown. If it is skin to skin contact, then it would activate the CNS and bring about associated bonding. It can be either parent-child bonding or even sexual partners bonding. So these are some of the roles of oxytocin. There are other roles also, minor roles, which I am not describing in this class. We are restricting ourselves to oxytocin as oxytocin secretion to a positive feedback loop. So if you look at the process of childbirth and oxytocin secretion, the pregnancy, as we know, it's a 3 trimester process. That is 3 months each, 3 trimester process. Early in gestation, that is during the pregnancy, during the first 2 trimesters, that is 6 months, the uterus remains relatively intact and inactive because of the inhibitory effects of the high level of progesterone on the uterine wall. However, during the last trimester, that is the last 3 months, the uterus, or more than 8 months in fact, if I have to be correct, 8 months of the pregnancy, post 8 months of pregnancy, the uterus becomes increasingly more excitable, resulting in mild contractions. And these contractions are called as Braxton Hicks contractions, occurring within the increasing strength and frequency. Another change that occurs is the ripening of the cervix. During gestation, the exit of the uterus remains sealed or closed by the tightly closed cervix. As labor approaches, the cervix begins to soften. This process of softening is known as ripening, uterus ripening. This results in the cervix to become more malleable so that it can gradually dilate as the fetus is forcefully pushed against during the labor, that is during the childbirth. Even each uterine contraction begins at the top of the uterus and sweeps downwards, forcing the fetus towards the cervix. The pressure of the fetus against the ripened cervix opens the cervical canal. As labor begins, the cervix of the uterus is stretched, which generates sensory impulses to the hypothalamus, which in turn stimulates the posterior pituitary to release oxytocin. So here we have a pituitary and a hypothalamus structure in the diagram. The green colored is the pituitary, and the above the green is the yellow colored structure, and that you have 2 blue nuclei, which is part of the hypothalamus. So in the hypothalamus, oxytocin is made in the magnocellular neurosecretory cells. Magnocellular neurosecretory cells have supraoptic nuclei and paraventricular nuclei, and is stored once they manufacture the oxytocin. The oxytocin is stored in the herring bodies. Okay, these herring bodies are vesicle structures which stores the oxytocin, and they are stored at the axon terminals in the posterior pituitary. It is then released into the blood from the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Secretion of oxytocin from the neurosecretory nerve endings is regulated by the electrical activity of the oxytocin cells in the hypothalamus. And how do they do it? These cells generate action potentials that propagate downward to the axons, to the nerve endings in the pituitary. The endings contain large number of oxytocin containing vesicles. As I said, they are called herring bodies, which are released by exocytosis when the nerve terminals are depolarized. So since they are nerves, it has to be depolarized for the vesicle to release at the synaptic vesicle. Here in the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Oxytocin produces more powerful uterine contractions, so the fetus is pushed more forcefully against the cervix. stimulating more oxytocin release in a continuous positive feedback loop. This is reinforced as oxytocin stimulates prostaglandin production by the uterine lining. Further enhancing uterine contractions. So it has been discovered that the placenta itself secretes oxytocin at the end of gestation and in an amount far higher than that from the posterior pituitary gland. This happens only towards the end. The external break or shut off of the feedback cycle is basically the delivery of the baby and the placenta from the mother's womb. So circulating oxytocin does not increase in late pregnancy and even in labor until full cervical dilation. So however, the concentration of uterine oxytocin receptors increases more than 100-fold toward the end of pregnancy. And how does that happen? See, if you look at the rising secretion of estrogens or primarily estriol formed from fetoplacental unit, which stimulates the uterus to produce receptors for oxytocin, produce receptors for prostaglandins, produce gap junctions between myometrial cells in the uterus. So these are the actions of the estrogens. So if you look at the picture here and the placenta, we have labeled an estriol which promotes the oxytocin production, which inhibits the progesterone which in turn inhibits the uterine contraction. If there is a uterine contraction, the fetus would release the prostaglandins, asking the pituitary to release oxytocin, again promoting more of uterine contraction. This is also brought about by the placenta, where the estriol promotes the oxytocin production by the pituitary. So oxytocin induces uterine contraction in two ways. Oxytocin stimulates the release of prostaglandin E2 and prostaglandin F2A in fetal membranes by activation of phospholipase C. These prostaglandins stimulates uterine contractility. So, as I said here, the fetus prostaglandin release and brings about uterine contraction. So, oxytocin can also directly induce uterine contractions through phospholipase C, which in turn activates calcium channels and the release of calcium from intracellular stores. So in the end, oxytocin also protects against hemorrhage after expulsion of the placenta, that is loss of blood during delivery of the baby. And just prior to the delivery, the uterus receives nearly 25% of the cardiac output, most of which flows through the low resistance pathways of the maternal portion of the placenta. So if something goes wrong because of the high cardiac output, there is chance of high blood loss. So oxytocin protects the blood loss during parturition, during childbirth. Now after labor, the release of milk at the nipple stimulates the baby to start suckling vigorously. This is also brought about by the oxytocin, which stimulates the receptors in the nipple even more, so that there is even more oxytocin released from the maternal pituitary and even more milk is released, and so on. So as long as there is a suckling from the baby on the nipple, there is a continuous signal reaching the pituitary to keep releasing the oxytocin. So oxytocin lets the milk flow out from the breast of the mother until the baby is satiated, that is full, and unlatches from the breast. As long as there is suckling, there is a signal. If there is no suckling, if the baby unlatches from the breast, there is no milk production and milk letdown will not happen. When everything goes back to normal, the oxytocin production shuts down. So as long as the stimulus is there, the oxytocin production keeps happening. So that is a positive feedback mechanism. Once the stimulus stops, oxytocin production stops. So no more production of oxytocin. In summary, if I have to talk about, as we read here, after 9 months, the baby is fully grown and stretches the walls of the uterus, placing a strain on both mother and infant. This stress induces the release of chemicals which trigger a rise in levels of estrogen, estriol in particular. So this estriol prepares the smooth muscles of the uterus for hormonal stimulation by increasing its sensitivity to oxytocin, that is by increasing the receptors for oxytocin. So estriol also inhibits the progesterone, as we see in this picture, which was preventing uterine contractions from occurring while the fetus is developed. This is very much important because from the gestation point of view, a 40-week gestation is very much important for a healthy baby to be delivered. So before 40 weeks, there should not be any chance of labor happening. So the placenta keeps producing progesterone in order to inhibit the uterine contraction. If uterine contraction is allowed, then there is chance of childbirth. So that would be usually in the case of premature birth of a baby. Okay, to avoid the premature birth, so the placenta keeps producing progesterone. So now that the uterus is primed for childbirth, that is at the end of the 40th week or during the 40th week, the brain triggers the release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland. Oxytocin stimulates uterine muscles to contract, initiating birthing process. And it inhibits the progesterone secretion. So progesterone was blocking the uterine contraction. So progesterone has to be stopped. So once the oxytocin is produced, so progesterone stops automatically from the placenta. So that way the uterine contraction is increased. The fetus responds to this uterine contraction by releasing prostaglandins, which triggers further uterine contractions. As uterine contractions trigger, the release of chemicals that cause further contractions also increases. This is a positive feedback loop which takes over. So contraction will stop only when the labor is complete, that is the baby is delivered, and it is tightly regulated process. Okay, so if you look at the diagram here, so the head of the baby pushes against the cervix, which bring about the stretch cells acting and sending a signals to nerve impulses to the brain. So the brain stimulates pituitary gland to secrete oxytocin, and oxytocin carried in the bloodstream to uterus. Oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions and pushes the baby towards cervix, and cervix is enlarged. It keeps enlarging as much as for the baby to be out of the womb, preferably around, if I'm correct, around 12 centimeter to 15 centimeter, depending upon the size and the weight of the baby. So this is it about the positive feedback loop. We have covered the meaning of positive feedback loop and oxytocin, its role and its production, and also how oxytocin regulates the childbirth in this class. So thank you very much. If you have any doubt, you can reach me and you can leave a comment in the YouTube itself. Thank you.